this new year, let's look back at the best and worst from the Rays season from 2022.
Let's do that. Happy New Year, folks. But let's remember what happened in 2022 starting right now.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, my name is Kevin Weiss.
I'm Ulises Sambrano.
And we are the host of the Locked On Rays podcast. Thank you for making us your very first listen every day. Be sure to subscribe to that YouTube channel of ours at Locked On Rays, in addition to checking out all the other usual podcasting platforms as well. You're also more than welcome to send us an email or voice memo to lockedonrays@gmail.com. All right, Ulises, you said it. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all the listeners, both long-time and new listeners. We hope that it's a great year for you and for the Tampa Bay Rays as well. But before we have fun with 2023, we got to look back. We got to take a look back, see, if you will, from 2022. Our best and worst. Best Rays moment from 2022 and worst Rays moment from 2022. And we also have some listener interjections as well on the best and worst. Ulises, what would you rather start with, worst or best from this past season with the Rays?
I think we gotta pick it up. So let's start low, and then so we can end on a happy note. What do you think? We should start with the worst, with the negative first.
I'm cool with it. Let's do it. Let's go with that. So what is your worst moment or moments from this past year in regards to the Rays?
The worst moment. It's a conglomeration of tiny little moments.
Okay.
But for me, it's just the lack of combined production from three rookies that we were expecting a whole lot more from them. Taylor Walls, Vidal Brujan, and Josh Lowe. They had a lot of pressure on them. The front office did not really have a backup plan of veteran leaders if the young guys did not produce, and they did not produce. And then they didn't have backup. And then they had a lot more ABs because of injuries, and they didn't perform, even though they were given time and time again opportunities here and there. So I know a lot of people that will never once utter anything negatively about the Rays will just point out the I word, injuries, right? But I mean, you can say injuries this and injuries that, but it's not like the Phillies didn't lose a two-time MVP award winner and they kept going, right? I mean, it's everybody had injuries.
Yeah.
So I get it, but something else should have been done.
Right. I agree. And following up off that a little bit, that was actually something that was my, B worst moment, if you will. It's so funny where it was a situation where, I mean, we kind of all bought into the hype train of Vidal Brujan, Josh Lowe, and Taylor Walls. And you would think, I mean, just the just being a gambling man, if you will, that, you got three highly touted prospects. One of those has to hit. And I mean, Taylor Walls did hit, not literally, but hit defensively. So he produced in that realm, but you absolutely needed more from both of the all three of those guys. And the lane was open for them with some of the trades that the Rays made and the injuries that they had. Like, the opportunity was there for them to produce, and they just did not show it. So hopefully 2023 is much stronger and better for them. That remains to be seen as of right now. My stock is sort of low on them as far as that's concerned. But kind of tied into that, the lack of offense from the trio there. My worst from the Rays 2022 season, and maybe it's a little unfair and maybe it's recency bias, but I go back to the best of three wild card series against the Cleveland Guardians, where the Rays scored a grand total of 1 runs in 24 innings. 24 innings of play. You had the 15 innings in game 2 and the 9 innings in game 1. Now, in fairness, flip side, the the Guardians offense wasn't that much better as, they scored, I guess, 3 runs total across those 2 games. And again, I mean, I get the defense of the Rays in the sense of, yeah, you had Shane Bieber in game 1 and you had Tristan McKenzie in game 2, and basically half the lineup was rookies at different points of those series. You didn't have Austin Meadows. You didn't have Nelson Cruz. You didn't have Brandon Lau. You didn't have Kevin Kiermaier, Mike Zunino. But one run in 24 innings doesn't cut it. I'll just leave it at that.
And the excuse of like, well, you had Bieber and McKenzie. If there are Rays fans that are actually using that as like, well, the pitching was really tough. Who do you expect to win against in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's all good. You're always going to have a good 1-2 for the most part, if not a 3 and a 4.
Always. So like that can't be an excuse. Like that's a fact. You're going to be facing good pitchers, so you can't just say, "Well, it was really tough pitching." Well, yeah. What do you expect? It's the playoffs. Right. It's the playoffs, yeah. and especially a team that you're facing that is built like that in pitching and defense, just like the Rays were. So, that was. I think it did a lot of this to have a very tough off season for 2022, because the way that the season ended, and then just the off season itself, the hot stove has not been hot at all. I get it. Zach Eflin is a terrific pickup. I think he's going to be great. Kelly, very cool. He might be an arm in the bullpen in the stable. But that, I mean, yeah, you got better.
Those guys don't swing bats.
And it's offensive. The offensive side of the ball is what hurt the Rays in 2022. You've done nothing to help that. I get it. The team right now, the pitching is better. We all agree with that. But you have to do something with the bats. I understand there are, 6.5 more weeks of off season left to do some trades and free agency before the spring training pitchers and catchers report. But it's no wonder I think, at least for me personally, this off season has just been has done nothing to amp me up.
I think the stove is broken on the Rays end of things. It's not a hot stove. It's an inoperable stove, if you will. And going back to the series against the Guardians, again, and we focused on this after the series, but your big 3, Yandy, Wander, Randy, in game 1, they went 0 for 12, combined 0 for 12 with 6 strikeouts. Game 2 wasn't that much better. Those 3 combined 2 for 16. Which equates to a 125 average. And I mean, all told in that marathon of a game too, in terms of number of innings, not in runs scored, the Rays went 6 for 49 with 20 strikeouts.
And the 2 hits you're talking about during the second game, 2 for 16, one of them was an infield hit by Randy Arozarena. So it's not like they were scorching. I mean, just the worst type of offensive approach and results were those 2 games. And say sample size this, sample size that, it was still bad. It was still bad.
Yes.
And other teams have the same amount of at bats and opportunities in the playoffs. It's who can come up with those hits. They didn't.
Yeah. All right, I'm glad we got the worst out of the way, so we can move on and go to a more positive note with the best from 2022. But before we do that, we got to tell you about BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number 1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. It's where you get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and the World Cup. It is all covered at betonline.net. It is the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. All right, Ulises, let's move on to the best Rays moment or moments from 2022 in our opinions. What do you have? What topped out for you?
We talked so much about injuries in this episode already and throughout the 2022 season. It was very nice to finally flip the narrative on, oh, this guy's out for the season. Oh, this guy's going to be out for 6 weeks. Oh, we don't know if they're going to come back. When we get Tyler Glasnow back before the playoffs, that was the best moment. And in many ways, at least for me, because first, the reversal of the injury narrative, awesome to break that on his head. Second, he comes back and he was basically untouchable, Kevin. I mean, he gave up that home run in Boston, but I mean, when the lights were brightest against Cleveland in the wild card game, he was basically perfect, man. I mean, he looked so good. Everything was so sharp. 5 innings of I think 80 pitches. I mean, he just looked terrific. He looked exactly how you would have wanted him to look in a best case scenario this whole time. So I think that for me was the best case scenario. And lastly, it gives a good outlook for 2023.
Right.
It gives you now who's on the rotation? Glasnow's at the top. Oh, Shane McClanahan. Oh, Jeffrey Springs. Oh, Drew Rasmussen. Oh, Zach Eflin. Like, you look around the league.
Yes.
And it's very difficult to come up with 3, maybe 4 rotations that could beat the Rays one right now.
Yeah. Maybe great minds think alike, because that was also my best moment from 2022 for the Rays. Tyler Glasnow making his return in late September, 14 months after Tommy John surgery, which is 60 weeks or 412 days, whichever way you want to look at it. He hadn't pitched since August 4th, 2021 in a big league game. And again, that debut, or that return, if you will, I know it was only 3 innings pitched, but you saw vintage Glasnow. It looked like he hadn't missed a beat. It wasn't, he's only topping out at 94, 95, 96. No, it was 99 at the top of the zone. It was 93 mile an hour sliders at the bottom of the zone. It was 84 mile per hour hammer 12-6 curveballs. You saw everything that you wanted and needed to see from Tyler Glasnow, which just should be a really, really encouraging sight, no matter how many innings, whether it's 100, 125, 150 innings that he provides in 2023. Just having hopefully a healthy Glasnow for that year is huge. And I think also what a real smart move for the Rays prior to him making his return was making sure he was locked up with that contract extension, and making sure that his mind was at ease and not thinking about, okay, what's my status going to be? How much am I going to make in arbitration? Knowing that, okay, he's going to get paid this coming year, and he's going to get paid big time in the following year. So having that stability and that ease for him, I think really counts for something. And it was probably a good omen if you're a Rays fan, knowing that, okay, the Rays are giving him, they're showing confidence in him a month and a half before he steps on the mound again. Okay, I think Glasnow is going to be able to do some things when he returns.
And I love that you mentioned the contract, because I think that's one of the things that we don't mention enough is it's the human side of baseball.
Yeah.
They want to know where they're going to be playing. They want to know how, people like knowing things before they happen so they can prepare, and knowing that he can be in Tampa Bay for the next 2 years. And I know we might a little bit disagree on this, on whether he will be traded or not. I'm a staunch believer that he's not going anywhere. Like, after you sign
not
that,
the entire, so not even a deadline deal. He is staying all the way through 2024.
The only way I see him being dealt in 2024, when he's making $25 million, is if the Rays are out of contention. Now, I don't think that is going to happen. Could it happen? Sure. But I think that's the only way that he gets traded during the deadline in 2024, is if the Rays are just not doing well. I mean, if they look like the Red Sox from 2022, just a bad all-around team that's not doing anything. And I don't think the Rays are going to do that in 2024. So, why trade him? So I think that human element could ease some stress, could ease some anxiety, could ease some all of the things that you don't talk about when you're mentioning an MLB player. It's knowing, oh, I'm going to live here. Oh, I can, if I have a relationship, like, oh, okay, it's going to be here. Like all of the things that you don't talk about. I think that's huge when you sign that contract.
Especially an organization like the Rays, which is very transactional happy. That's another thing that really, I mean, they have shown time and time again, we, for the most part, don't care about the name on the back of the jersey as much as other organizations and franchises throughout baseball and throughout all of sports as well. So, so that was big too. And I got to give credit to Mark Topkin because he did write a tremendous article in Tyler Glasnow's return where he got quotes from several players and coaches on what it means to have Glasnow back. And one that really stuck out to me was from reliever Dustin Knight, who I don't think is any longer on the team. I'm not sure about that. I can't. He's definitely not on the 40 man. I know that.
Yeah.
He said of Glasnow, he is unhuman. His stuff is just probably the most purest, nastiest stuff I've ever seen. He looks like a guy who's ready to go out and pitch the 7th game of the World Series. That was as he was getting back and ready to return to the big leagues. So that was a cool little quote, I thought, anyway, there. Now, a little side note, we agree on the Tyler Glasnow making his return to the big league club, just as sort of an honorable mention here. And the reason it probably slipped under the radar was because it happened in January of 2022. So seemingly years and years ago. But the MLB Executive Council nixing the Sister City plan. I did need to throw that out in the best Rays moments of 2022. I mean, hopefully it doesn't lead to the Rays relocating to Nashville, but the whole Montreal, St. Petersburg, Montreal, Tampa idea is donezo.
Yeah, we needed that to be done and dead, and it was good to get that out of the way before the season started. And knowing that, hey, that wasn't going to happen, I think it's a terrific honorable mention, Kevin, because that was causing a lot of animosity between the ownership and the fandom, especially when you're talking about putting billboards inside the Trop during a playoff run of a team that's winning 100 games, like. Maybe completely whiffed on that. But you know what you don't have to whiff at is if you want something healthy and delicious, you can go get yourself a Built Bar because it's a delicious treat that doesn't give you all the fat and calories. So what makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. I've told you that 1,000 times. Yes, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors such as peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and many, many more. So what you need to do is go to built.com, okay? And you're going to use promo code BUILT15, okay? Locked on 15 at built.com, and that's going to get you 15% off on the website for anything that you order, okay? These are delicious. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. You are going to love this, but if you don't want to go to built.com, you can now get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. Okay, so you go to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and you can grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. You can do that starting right now in 2023. So today, go get yourself something healthy, tasty, and delicious.
All right. Yeah, you mentioned billboards. I think the Rays need to put a Built Bar billboard at the Trop beginning in 2023. They need to get on that pronto.
Yeah.
All right. Getting to some listener comments on best and worst from the Rays 2022 season. R. Hill says, best KK walk-off home run against the Red Sox. Worst, scoring just 1 run in the playoffs. So very good points there. Argenis Rashad says, best, Isaac Paredes 2 home run game versus ex-team, the Tigers. In the worst, Luis Patino's disastrous start versus the Yankees in New York City.
Woof. That's a good worst. That's a good worst because he had just come off, like, I think 2 starts prior to that, his best one at the Trop, he looked like an electrico. Like he looked like what we all want Luis to be. And then that last start at Yankee Stadium, good with Argenis, that was rough to watch for sure.
Yeah, I believe 9 earned runs in an inning and a third.
Yeah, something ridiculous
Patino.
that doesn't make sense. Yeah.
And not surprising, the Rays did lose that game that Luis Patino started or pitched against the Yankees. Then Chris Snyder says, best Paredes 3-homer game. Who was that against? Because he had the 2-homer game.
I was at that game, the 3-homer game. Okay. It was against the New York Yankees. It was great. It was a victory, I think 5-4, if I'm not mistaken. I think Aaron Judge flew out to left field to end the game, and everybody was like, "Oh no!" And then it was caught at the warning track.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Chris says the worst is not finding a space for Longo. Of course, he means Evan Longoria signing I think a $4 million deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks. I'll say this: I mean, it takes 2 to tango. Maybe Longo just wanted to. I think he's got a home in Arizona and the spring training deal. Like maybe he wasn't quite ready to leave the West Coast as of yet.
Well, funny that you say that, because I saw this Instagram post that somebody commented on. I think he went to a Lightning game with his kids. I think
I did hear that
recently, maybe 4 days ago or something like that. And somebody said, "Oh, I wish you could have been a Ray this year. Come back to being a Ray." And then he actually answered that fan, and he said, "We did all we could. We did all we could." So much to dive into in those few words. We did all we could. So you're telling me that if he's signing a 1-year, $4 or $5 million deal, the Rays can't match that? Of course they can't. The issue is I don't think the Rays want to match that because of the offensive production that they could get from other guys like Yandy, Isaac Paredes, etc. But it was odd. I did like that he responded to that, because he wants to say to the fandom, I wanted to come back. It was on them. I think that's what it was on them. It was on the front office for me to not return. We did all we could. We did all we could.
Well, in that case, the Rays better get on it with adding a lefty bat or some sort of impressive bat that, better outproduce what Evan Longoria can produce at age 37, besides, not to mention, the nostalgic and historical factor of what Longoria would provide. But we got some interesting mailbag questions about some possibilities, but I would think you better do something that moves the needle for striking out or not landing a deal with Evan Longoria, so to speak. So they could have done that with a Michael Brantley or a Josh Bell. So it remains to be seen what over the course of January and February they have up their sleeve. Maybe it's a big time trade. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody else out there on the market that we haven't really given enough thought to. But you got to do something. I mean, you got to add some sort of offensive piece, I would think.
This is not going to make or break the Rays season in 2023 because they didn't pursue Longo, by the way.
Right.
It's not. We always talk about.
He's not an 8-WAR player anymore.
Right, exactly. We always talked about his biggest thing would be a fan first interaction boost, the billboards wandering him. That was the first thing. And the second thing is that he can still match lefties. It's not maybe something that the Rays immediately need as a first order of things. But, I know there's time. No time to freak out yet. 6.5 weeks until pitchers and catchers report. But if you are not going for Longo for that ethos, pathos, emotional attachment to the fan base, don't you dare give me something like Dave. I mean, I liked David Peralta, but don't you be bringing somebody like David Peralta and expect us to clap.
Yeah, but I think that's what they're going to do, is something like that. I think that's what they're thinking of it. I mean, that's what you have as far as available options.
Which is so not going to change the needle. And I know, again, the people that are just like seals and clap at everything that the Rays do without saying anything negatively. Wander going to be healthy. Brandon Lau is going to be healthy. Everybody, you can't. We could have been saying that after 2021, people,
right?
And then those things didn't happen. What makes you think that everything's going to be just jolly fine in 2023? Like, no, depth. Yeah. You need depth.
If the Rays added David Peralta today, they would go from maybe being projected to win 86 games to maybe 86.8 games. That's moving the needle ever so slightly.
Yeah. So semantics. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
100%.
All right. Thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your very first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast. That is also free and available on all platforms. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe, and we will talk to you on Wednesday with a mailbag episode.